Summary. Theme and analysis. Leda and the Swan by W. B. Yeats. Leda and the Swan is a poem by W. B. Yeats, written in 1923, and is inspired by the Greek myth of Leda and Zeus in the form of a swan. The poem is a sonnet, consisting of 14 lines, and it explores themes of power, transformation, and the interplay between the physical and the spiritual. Summary. The poem begins with a vivid description of the mythological encounter between Leda and the Swan, emphasizing the violence and intensity of the act. Yeats then delves into the consequences of this union, particularly the birth of Helen of Troy, whose beauty would ultimately lead to the Trojan War. The poem ends with a reflection on the power of ancient myths and their ability to influence and shape the present. Themes. Power and violence. The poem explores the idea of power and how it can be destructive. The swan's violent act is a metaphor for the abuse of power, a theme that was relevant to the political and social turmoil of Yeats' time. Transformation. The poem touches on the idea of transformation and change. The mythological event leads to the birth of two significant figures, which illustrates how a single act can have far-reaching consequences. Myth and history. Yeats uses the myth of Leda and the Swan to connect the ancient past with the contemporary world. The poem suggests that historical events and figures are influenced by timeless mythological forces. The physical and the spiritual. Yeats often delved into the realms of mysticism and the supernatural. In this poem, the physical encounter between Leda and the Swan takes on a spiritual dimension, with references to vague fingers and the indifferent beak. Analysis. Yeats' Leda and the Swan is known for its complex and enigmatic language. The poem's structure and imagery reflect the tumultuous and unsettling nature of the myth it portrays. The violent act of the swan's seduction is a metaphor for the upheaval and chaos in human history, particularly the destructive consequences of desire and power. The poem's use of Greek mythology adds a layer of timelessness, suggesting that these themes are not confined to one era but are part of a recurring human experience. Yeats also explores the idea that myths and legends have the power to shape our understanding of history and human existence. Overall, Leda and the Swan is a thought-provoking and richly symbolic poem that delves into themes of myth, power, violence, and transformation, leaving room for various interpretations and discussions.